Our first story takes us to the Narvik Mountains in Norway. It is May 20th, 1999. Anna Bogenholm is 29 years old, a skilled orthopedic surgeon in training, and an expert skier. The conditions are perfect: crisp air, brilliant sun. With 2 colleagues, she heads off-piste, leaving the safety of the groomed trails for the steep, untouched powder of the mountain's west face. Anna is in her element. She carves down the steep incline with precision, dodging rocks and trees.
But the mountain hides a trap. In a split second, her skis hit a patch of hidden, slick ice. She loses her edge. She falls. Gravity takes over. Anna accelerates uncontrollably, sliding on her back, tumbling head over heels down the mountain. She crashes violently onto the surface of a frozen stream. But the ice is thin. It shatters under the impact, and in a horrifying instant, Anna disappears. She is dragged headfirst into the freezing water, trapped beneath a thick, unbreakable ceiling of ice. Anna is now upside down, pinned underwater by rocks and a slab of ice 20 centimeters thick. Her friends rush to the hole, grabbing her skis, pulling with everything they have. But she won't budge. She is trapped in a frozen vice. Panic sets in. But Anna, a doctor, even in this extremity, finds a tiny miracle. A pocket of air, barely a few inches wide, trapped between the water and the ice. She presses her face into it and gasps. It keeps her alive, for now. But the water is freezing. As her friends frantically call for rescue, Anna's body begins to shut down. The pain of the cold is excruciating, a burning sensation that consumes her limbs. Then, the shivering stops. This is the danger zone. Her body has given up trying to generate heat. Her core temperature plummets. Her heart slows, and then stops. By the time the rescue helicopter arrives, 80 minutes have passed. When they finally cut her out of the ice, Anna is white, stiff, and silent. She is clinically dead. Her body is frozen solid. No pulse, no breath. Her pupils are fixed and dilated. In any other circumstance, she would be declared dead on arrival. But Dr. Mads Gilbert at Tromsø University Hospital refuses to give up. He knows the golden rule of hypothermia medicine. You are not dead until you are warm and dead. Anna's core body temperature is 13.7 degrees Celsius, 57 degrees Fahrenheit. It is the lowest body temperature ever recorded in a survivor. Dr. Gilbert connects her to a heart-lung bypass machine. The machine takes her cold, thick blood, warms it, oxygenates it, and pumps it back into her lifeless body. For hours, they wait. And then, at 4 p.m., a blip on the monitor. Her heart flutters. It beats. Against all logic, Anna Bogenholm is alive. Her heart was beating, but the battle was far from over. Her brain had been starved of oxygen for more than an hour. By all known medical science, she should have suffered catastrophic, irreversible brain damage. Dr. Gilbert feared she might never wake up. But 12 days later, Anna opened her eyes, and she was there. It was baffling. How could a human brain survive such a prolonged death? The answer lay in a biological paradox. The extreme cold that had stopped her heart had also saved her brain. As her temperature plummeted, her metabolism slowed to a near halt. Her cells, usually hungry for oxygen, went into a state of suspended animation. They stopped consuming energy. They stopped dying. The ice had essentially turned her into a biological time capsule, preserving her tissues until help could arrive. Her case rewrote the textbooks.
Today, doctors use therapeutic hypothermia, intentionally cooling patients, to save brains during heart surgery. Anna didn't just survive, she changed medicine. And today, she walks the halls of that same hospital, not as a patient, but as a senior radiologist, a living testament to the impossible. But Anna had the advantage of modern medicine. Our next survivor had nothing but the clothes on his back and the deadliest mountain on earth. To stand on the roof of the world, you have to pay a price. Financially, it can cost up to $115,000. But the real cost is measured in blood. Since 1954, for every 16 climbers who attempt to conquer Mount Everest, one will die trying. May 10th, 1996. A 49-year-old pathologist from Texas named Beck Weathers was about to pay that bill in full. He was standing at 26,000 feet, a realm the Nepalese call the domain of the goddess of the sky, and what climbers call the death zone. Here, the air is so thin it cannot sustain human life. The body begins to consume itself. The path to the summit is a graveyard, littered with the preserved, frozen corpses of those who failed. Twisted, colorful markers on the road to heaven. Beck was supposed to be just another tourist, but as a catastrophic storm engulfed the mountain, he became something else, a medical impossibility. He would be pronounced dead not once, but twice. He would endure 25 hours of hypoxia, hypothermia, and flesh-eating frostbite. He would lie in a coma in the snow, abandoned by his peers. And yet, he would open his eyes. Beck Weathers was an experienced climber, 7 hours into the ascent. But his body betrayed him in a way no one could have predicted. He was going blind. Months earlier, Beck had undergone a surgery called radial keratotomy to correct his nearsightedness. A surgeon had made microscopic diamond blade incisions in his corneas to flatten them. It worked perfectly at sea level, but no one knew what would happen to those delicate scars in the death zone. As the altitude increased and the atmospheric pressure dropped, his corneas began to warp and distort. His vision blurred into a useless haze. And then, tragedy compounded tragedy. An invisible shard of ice lodged itself in his right eye. When he rubbed it, the crystal dragged across his cornea like broken glass, tearing it open. Blind, in pain, and utterly helpless, he made the only choice he could. He unclipped from the safety rope. He sat down in the snow, 26,000 feet in the air, while his guide, the legendary Rob Hall, made him a promise. "I will come back for you." Beck waited. He promised he wouldn't move. "Cross my heart," he said. "Hope to die." But Rob Hall would never come back. He was dying near the summit. And Beck was left alone to face the monster. A catastrophic blizzard slammed into the mountain. The temperature plummeted to 40 degrees below zero. Winds screamed at 90 miles per hour, stinging exposed skin like needles. Beck stood his ground for 10 hours. Other climbers passed him, including the journalist John Krakauer, and offered help. But Beck, blinded by loyalty as much as snow, refused. He was waiting for Rob. By the time another guide, Mike Groom, finally forced him to move, hypothermia had already claimed him. His core temperature was dropping below 95 degrees. His movements were sluggish, his thoughts thick like syrup. He was a dead man walking, stumbling blind into the white hell. The storm swallowed them. It was a total whiteout, like being trapped inside a bottle of milk. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And for Beck,
that was literal. In the chaos, his right glove was ripped away by the wind. In seconds, his bare hand froze solid, turning into a useless claw of ice. Delirium set in. Hypoxia starved his brain of oxygen. While the other survivors huddled together for warmth, Beck stood up. He faced the wind with outstretched arms, screaming nonsense into the gale, convinced he had everything figured out. And then, a gust of wind knocked him flat.
When the legendary rescuer, Anatoly Bukreev, found the group later that night, he looked at Beck. He saw a body half buried in snow, unresponsive, frozen. He made the only choice he could. He saved the living and left the dead. Morning came, but no rescue. A Canadian doctor, Stuart Hutchinson, went to check the bodies. He found Beck half buried in the ice. His face was caked in a shell of frost. His bare right arm was frozen upright in a grotesque salute, stiff as marble. His jacket was open, exposing his chest to the lethal cold, a final paradoxical symptom of hypothermia, where the dying feel intensely hot. His core temperature was likely below 80 degrees. He had been in a coma for 10 hours. Hutchinson checked for signs of life and found only the faintest, shallowest breath. He made the grim call. Beck Weathers was as close to death and still breathing as any human could be. He was beyond help. For the second time in 12 hours, he was abandoned. The camp radioed his wife in Texas. They told her he was dead. But at 4 p.m., something impossible happened. The corpse opened its eyes. He woke up thinking he was in his warm bed in Texas. But then he saw his hand. It looked like a piece of gray wood. When he hit it against the ice, it made a hollow thud. He felt no pain. Reality crashed in. I am on the mountain, he thought. And I am dead. But a spark of primal will ignited. Blind, frostbitten, and essentially dead, Beck stood up. He walked into camp like a revenant, his face black with necrosis, his arms frozen into hooks. The climbers stared in horror. They were looking at a ghost. Beck survived. He lost his nose, his right hand, and all the fingers on his left. But he gained something else. He saved his failing marriage. He reclaimed his life. I gave up a couple of parts of my body, he says today, but I got back my soul. But not everyone is rescued. Our next survivor had to save himself from the most lonely place on Earth. The Pacific Ocean is a desert of water, endless, indifferent, and deadly. November 17th, 2012, Costa Azul, Mexico. Jose Salvador Alvarenga, a veteran shark fisherman, prepares for a routine trip. He is 35, tough, and confident. With him is a young, inexperienced rookie named Ezequiel Cordoba, just 22 years old. They push their small 25-foot fiberglass boat into the surf. It's loaded with supplies for a 30-hour shift, gasoline, water, bait, and a large icebox for the catch. They motor 50 miles out, deep into the fishing grounds where the marlin and sharks hunt. The sun is shining. The fish are biting. It feels like the perfect day. They are alone, a tiny speck in the vast blue. They have no idea that they are about to drift off the edge of the world. By afternoon, the horizon turned black. A norte, a violent northern gale, was slamming into the coast.
Alvarenga turned the boat around, gunning the engine for home. But the sea rose up to meet them. Waves the size of buildings crashed over the small fiberglass hull. For hours they fought, bailing water with frantic desperation. Then the engine sputtered and died. Alvarenga grabbed the radio. "Mayday, mayday!" But the GPS had failed. The Coast Guard asked for his coordinates. "I don't have them," he screamed. And then the radio battery died. Silence. To keep the boat from capsizing in the violent swells, Alvarenga made a heartbreaking choice. He threw their entire catch, 500 pounds of fresh fish, overboard. Then the gasoline. Then the fishing gear. They were left with nothing but the clothes on their backs and a large, empty icebox. They were at the mercy of the current. When the storm cleared, they were alone in a blue void. No land, no ships. Just the sun, burning their skin like a magnifying glass. Thirst became their first enemy. They learned to catch rain in scraps of plastic. When it didn't rain, they drank turtle blood. When there were no turtles, they drank their own urine. Hunger followed. With no hooks or nets, Alvarenga became a predator. He knelt at the edge of the boat, motionless for hours, plunging his hands into the water to grab fish with his bare fingers. He ate them raw, eyes, organs, and all. He snatched seabirds from the air, snapping their necks and devouring the meat. It was a diet of survival, but it came with a cost. The raw flesh was riddled with parasites. Liver flukes infested his organs, causing agonizing cramps and nausea. But he ate anyway. He had chosen life. But his young companion, Cordoba, could not adapt. The raw birds made him retch. The turtle blood disgusted him. After 4 months of hell, his mind broke. He simply refused to eat. Alvarenga begged him, force-feeding him scraps of fish, but Cordoba spat them out. He had entered a state of psychogenic death. He had given up. One morning, he convulsed and died. Alvarenga was now truly alone. But in his madness, he refused to accept it. For 6 days, he kept the corpse on the boat. He sat next to the rotting body, having full conversations with it. "How do you feel?" he would ask. "I feel better," he would answer in his own voice. "Have you eaten?" "Yes, I ate." It was a descent into total insanity. Finally, realizing that he was losing his mind, he washed the clothes of his dead friend, buttoned his shirt, and gently slid him into the sea. For months he drifted. His clothes rotted off his body. His hair grew into a tangled mane. He became a wild creature of the sea, counting the phases of the moon to mark time. 200 days, 300 days, 400 days. And then, on January 30th, 2014, he saw something green on the horizon. Trees. It wasn't a hallucination. It was Ebon Atoll in the Marshall Islands, more than 6,000 miles from where he started. He cut away the last of his fishing net, dove into the surf, and crawled onto the sand. When locals found him, he was naked, shouting in Spanish, wild-eyed and emaciated. He had been lost at sea for 438 days. He was a medical impossibility, a man who had survived on nothing but willpower and raw fish. But while Alvarenga fought the water, our next survivor faced an even more terrifying element: fire. November 1992. The Kilauea volcano in Hawaii is erupting. Michael Benson is a Hollywood cameraman strapped into a helicopter, filming aerial shots for the movie Sliver. Below him, the Pu'u'o'o vent is a churning lake of molten rock, sputtering and boiling like a massive, hellish stew. The pilot flies low, skimming the toxic clouds to get the perfect shot. Benson leans out the door, the heat hitting his face, the smell of sulfur filling his lungs. It is awe-inspiring. It is dangerous. And then, the rotor blades chop through the thin, superheated air. The engine sputters. The beep, beep, beep of the stall warning screams in their headsets. The helicopter drops like a stone, straight into the throat of the volcano. The crash was violent. The helicopter clipped the crater wall, skimmed terrifyingly close to a pool of lava, and smashed onto a jagged shelf of rock. Miraculously, the fuel tank didn't explode. Benson, his colleague Chris Duddy, and the pilot Craig Hosking crawled out of the wreckage, ears ringing, hearts hammering. They were alive, but they were trapped inside an active volcano. The landscape was alien. The ground beneath their feet was hot to the touch. Toxic gas vents hissed around them, spewing yellow clouds of sulfur. Sputtering fountains of lava erupted just yards away, the molten rock splashing like deadly fireworks. They had no radio, no water, no gear. Their only hope was to climb out, but the walls of the crater were loose, crumbling rock, and the air was becoming poison. In the blinding fog, they got separated. The pilot managed to radio for help from the wreckage. Duddy climbed to a ledge, but Benson was left behind, trapped alone on a narrow ridge. As night fell, the volcano began to suffocate him. The air was a cocktail of death. Sulfur dioxide, which turned into acid in his lungs, burning his throat and eyes, and hydrogen sulfide, a gas that can kill in minutes. The fumes were heavy, settling into the hollows of the crater. Benson was drowning in dry air. He could feel his lungs tightening, his vision blurring. Every breath was a battle. He wrapped his shirt around his face, but the acid gas seeped through. He was being chemically burned from the inside out. A rescue helicopter dropped a supply pack, but it landed too far away, disappearing into the mist. Benson was now truly alone. 48 hours without water. The heat was unbearable. He licked condensation off the rocks to survive, and then his mind began to break. In the swirling, toxic clouds, he started seeing shapes, faces in the rock, and then he saw her, Madame Pele, the Hawaiian goddess of fire. He saw her face forming in the smoke, smiling at him, waiting to claim his soul. Benson didn't cower. He stood up on his precarious ledge, screaming into the void. "You are not going to take me," he roared at the hallucination. "You didn't get me." It was a primal scream of defiance against the earth itself. Monday morning, nearly 2 days inside the crater. Benson was fading. The gas was thickening. But then, for a brief, miraculous moment, the wind shifted, the clouds parted. A rescue helicopter, hovering blindly above, spotted a tiny figure waving on the rock. The pilot dropped a net. Benson scrambled into it, the mesh cutting into his skin as he was yanked into the sky, dangling over the lava lake one last time. As he rose, he looked down at the inferno that had tried to eat him. He was burnt, dehydrated, and lung damaged. But he was alive. But our final survivor faced a trap with no sky, no light, and no way out. April 24th, 2013. Dhaka, Bangladesh. The Rana Plaza,
an 8-story factory complex, is buzzing with the sound of thousands of sewing machines. Reshma Begum, a 19-year-old seamstress, is at her station on the 2nd floor. Suddenly, the power goes out. Massive generators on the roof kick in, their vibrations shaking the cracked walls. And then, a sound like thunder. The building doesn't just fall, it pancakes. In seconds, 8 floors of concrete collapse into a pile of rubble just 2 stories high. Over 1,100 people are crushed to death instantly. Reshma wakes up in total darkness. The air is thick with concrete dust. All around her, she hears the screams of the dying. She is trapped in a tiny air pocket, buried under tons of twisted metal and stone. She is alive, but she is in a tomb. Pinned under a slab of concrete, Reshma tries to move, but her hair is caught in the rubble. In agony, she rips it out by the roots, tearing clumps from her scalp to free herself. She crawls through a narrow gap into a small void, what used to be a basement prayer room. She isn't alone. 3 other workers are trapped in the dark with her. For days, they bang on the pipes, screaming for help until their voices give out. But no one comes. As the air grows stale and the heat rises, the others begin to fade. One by one, they stop talking. One by one, they die. By day 7, the silence is absolute. Reshma is the last one left alive in the grave. Oxygen was running out. The air was thick with dust and the stench of decay. Reshma fought for every breath, her brain fogging from hypoxia. Desperate, she found a steel pipe jutting through the debris and pressed her mouth to it, sucking in tiny drafts of fresh air from the surface. But the real killer was thirst. Her kidneys began to fail. Her blood thickened. She hallucinated water in the darkness. To survive, she became a scavenger. She crawled over the bodies of her dead colleagues, searching their bags in the pitch black. She found 4 packets of dried biscuits. She rationed them, crumb by crumb. When it rained, water trickled down through the cracks in the concrete. She tore strips of cloth from her clothes, soaked up the muddy puddles on the floor, and squeezed the dirty water into her mouth. She drank the rain to stay alive. By day 15, the biscuits were gone. Reshma survived on rainwater alone. By day 17, rescue operations had officially ceased. The grim task of body recovery had begun. Above her, bulldozers roared, clearing the rubble. Reshma heard the machines and was terrified. She knew they couldn't see her. She knew she was about to be crushed. Summoning her last reserve of strength, she grabbed a steel pipe and banged it rhythmically against a concrete slab above her head. Clang, clang, clang. A soldier, Abdul Razak, heard the sound. He signaled for silence. He peered into a dark crevice and saw something move. A pale, dusty hand waving back. "Save me," she cried. The machines stopped. Soldiers frantically dug her out. When she emerged into the blinding sunlight, the crowd gasped. She was covered in dirt, her scalp torn, but her bright pink scarf was still vibrant against the gray dust. She had been buried for 408 hours. Medically, she should have been dead from dehydration. She had consumed 4 cups of water in 17 days when she needed 200. But her body had defied the math. Her kidneys recovered. Her spirit survived. She had beaten the odds.